Visual novel games have always been one of those genres that people either really enjoy or don't really care for. In my opinion, it's a very tricky development task to make these games worth playing. There's many different ways it can be done, and today we'll see if the newest addition to visual novels on the Switch by Cowcat Games will be worth purchasing, with Demetrios, the BIG Cynical Adventure. I want to first quickly preface this by saying I was allowed a review copy of Demetrios, but it will in no way affect my opinion on the game. In fact, I plan to be even pickier as I had plenty of time to experience this title before posting a video. Moving on. Starting up the game, you are shown a hand-painted apartment in the city of Paris. All the designs throughout the menus are colorful and go well with the upbeat and bouncy music. But more importantly, the options are really well thought out. For a title that will mostly consist of 2D art, I still felt like I was able to customize experience based on my own preference. Different pointer speeds for each joystick is something I never expected to have control over, and there's even a selection for how toilety you would like the humor to go. This could make the content more acceptable for a wider audience. Beyond that, you also get to see the start of what becomes a rather large pool of game overs, achievements, and extras. There's all kinds of artwork, music, and minigames that can be unlocked after playing through portions of the story. Seeing all this potential content made me super excited to jump into the game itself. While I haven't played a huge amount of visual novel games, I haven't seen many use the comic book effect that I experienced while playing this. It made the intro so enjoyable to watch, and every time it was implemented into the game, it made for a descriptive and well thought out transition. The player gets introduced to the main character of this adventure, Bjorn. It's pretty obvious from first glance that he isn't the sharpest tool in the shed. After arriving home drunk late one night, he notices an intruder in his home, and upon investigating this discovery, Bjorn is knocked unconscious. This leads into your first dialogue with another character. There isn't any major voice acting in this game, besides some sound effects to be experienced later, but the text tones are rather enjoyable for those who also like similar sounds to clacking keyboards. Then you come face to face with your first screen in which you can conduct an investigation for who broke into Bjorn's apartment. After a brief tutorial about the UI, items, and overall interaction, the game truly begins. The player can use Joy-Cons, controllers, and even the touchscreen to explore the environment, and I really have to give a serious amount of respect to the developer for making such fine-tuned controls. Giving the player the option to adjust sensitivity and function for each joystick made navigation effortless. Fly around the screen with the left stick, and use the right stick that moves slowly and zooms in for a closer look on objects. I'm trying to not focus too much on this, but this is one of the most critical components for enjoying this game. If you constantly get frustrated with controls while trying to explore, then you won't be spending your time immersed in the story and having a good time. Make sure to not overlook any items no matter how big or small. Sometimes even each book on a shelf can have dialogue associated with it. While every item might not have a distinct purpose, just reading Bjorn's weird and sometimes idiotic remarks to various things can be entertaining. The first time you make him stick his finger into an outlet, you'll understand what I mean. Not everyone will enjoy it, but most of the titles I play are fairly serious, so it's nice to have a break from those types of games and enjoy some toilet humor every now and then. Plus, you'll be spending a lot of time collecting objects in your inventory and trying them out on many things you see in the screen. Some items can also be combined with each other for more complex uses. There's really a decent amount of things to interact with throughout the story. I'm the kind of person that has to be very thorough when I get my hands on point-and-click adventure games, and there's also the added benefit of finding cookies scattered in very hidden locations throughout the different screens. Hints as to what you should do next can be uncovered when Bjorn consumes these sometimes disgusting sweets. I only had to use a small number of these when completing the game, but seriously, there are a lot of these to collect for you dedicated completionists out there. It's also nice to run across some other characters in the world that usually have a decent impact on the story. Whether it's your next door neighbor Sandra, horrifying bodyguards, or even a disgruntled customer in Bjorn's antique shop, there's usually some laughs to be found with idiotic banter from our main character. Most of the main faces have a good amount of backstory to them, so they won't feel like blank characters that just meant to move the story forward. One aspect I find to be a great addition is the ability to move across different locations on the map when you want. It's very easy to make a visual novel title way too linear by forcing a player down the intended story path. Demetrios does a great job of bringing problems to solve or puzzles to complete to the player and then giving them the control to figure out what to do next, when it mostly involves traveling all over the place and remembering bits and pieces from each screen. In my opinion, this does a lot in making this title feel like it's full of exploring rather than just a simple straight path. Overall, each screen is illustrated in such a way that matches the comedic atmosphere that Bjorn brings to the world. Everything is nice and vivid, and objects are very easy to spot when next to each other. It's not meant to be photorealistic, and I think it does a great job of being synonymous with fun. The art style also holds up very well when being stretched as far as 4K on a TV. I really didn't notice any jagged edges or loss of quality. Great job for that one. But there's also some things that I didn't think were so great. This list is actually rather short because of how nice the experience is with the controls. While I like most of the music, there are some areas that you spend a lot of time in, and the small rotation of tracks can get a little repetitive at times. Not a major issue, but it seemed to drag my focus away too much. Playing from beginning to end, I only experienced 2 major bugs. One, I was locked out of interacting with absolutely anything when picking up a certain fruit, but fortunately was able to button mash my way out. But the second bug was actually kinda game breaking. During the start of the 3rd chapter, which I will not be showing for the sake of spoilers, my performance started to slowly deteriorate. It was almost like some kind of gradual memory leak, because after about 20 minutes, my game began running at roughly 5 frames per second, and I had to restart to fix the issue. Luckily, I only experienced this once, and it's most likely affecting that one section. Other than that, I noticed the mini games weren't anything too crazy, and I just got a little tired of the humor that revolved around Bjorn being an idiot. It didn't really hit me until close to the end of the game, but it can seem a little too constant at times. Then again, that's purely an opinion, where some people might actually really enjoy that through and through. What about audio? Like I said earlier, I actually enjoy most of the music tracks. They aren't anything too fancy, and you can hear that, but they fit the mood of the story and investigating by being bouncy and fun. Although, don't be surprised when there are a couple that you wish you could skip through. The sound effects themselves aren't extremely polished either. They get the job done to a good degree, and not much more than that. Overall, I didn't mind keeping the audio on the entire time I played. And because we were playing on the Switch, how's the handheld? After playing through with the Joy-Cons, it was pretty obvious that touch controls were going to be the go-to alternative for some players. Tapping through the environment instead of waiting for the pointer is plain great, and dragging your finger around is even better with the zoom function. The details on the smaller screen don't get lost at all, and the design features enough separation from all the objects you see to make everything clear to investigate. But I still love being able to switch to using pointer anytime I want with the Joy-Cons on the side. Battery life is also pretty stellar, which makes it ideal for long play sessions. I think it would be rather easy to get stuck in a decent play session while on a commute or even before bed. In essence, Demetrios is really one big puzzle where you search the environment for your answers. Some answers are pretty obvious, some may leave you thinking before that satisfying aha moment, and others are kind of frustrating to figure out. It's less about complex solutions in order to move on to the next screen, such as Machinarium from years ago, and more about completing tasks around an area to discover the solution to a current problem. I would say I enjoyed about 70% of the problem solving, while the other 30% was spent feeling like I didn't have a good lead. And honestly, that's not a horrible ratio. The story isn't anything mind-blowing, and this title probably won't attract players who don't care for visual novel games. But there were portions of playing this that surprised me a bit. With all of that in mind, is it still worth going out to spend full price to purchase? For anyone who enjoys point-and-click adventures, toilet humor, or visual novels in general, I think you'll enjoy it enough. Playing through it once while being pretty thorough and completing over half of the game overs and half of the achievements yielded 12 hours of playtime. This makes me put Demetrios at roughly $1.50 per hour if you only play through it once. If you have any desire to figure out the other endings or to hunt achievements, you'll go below $1 per hour. That makes this game quite a good value. For players who don't care for visual novels, this should still be worth picking up on a good sale. It's not like typical visual novels, and could potentially be the gateway to enjoying these types of games. At first, I didn't think I was going to say it was a buy, but after I realized how incredible the controls were, how many hours I was able to sink into it, and looking past the constant barrage of Bjorn is an idiot humor, I realized I actually had a good time, and I left behind so many achievements, cookies, and game overs. it's already giving me an itch to see what other weird situations I can get myself into. And that's it for Demetrios, the Big Cynical Adventure. Be sure to like this video if it helped you out, and subscribe to see my thoughts on upcoming titles. You can check out my social media by clicking on the links in the description below, and see what other games I have in mind to review even before a video is released.